hear me? Not yet. Is it on? I'm going to turn it on right now. There you go.
Hello. Oh, that's exciting. Hi, guys. Welcome to CR. Before I get going, I can feel my pulse. So let's pray so that I can calm down just a little bit. Let's bring the Father in the room. Probably already is in the room, but let's just bring him a little closer. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to talk about my stuff, Lord. This isn't about me, it's about you, and I pray that calm my nerves for one, and please allow me to reach your sons and daughters here tonight, Lord. I pray that you just give me the words and the guidance to share what I need to share for your glory. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Hi, my name is Jessie. I'm a grateful, excited, most of the time, believer in Jesus. Unless I'm not getting my way. Sometimes then I throw a fit. But I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with codependency, people-pleasing, anger, working through trauma, and many other things. I am a dirty, rotten sinner that needs Jesus every day, and I acknowledge that.
Hi, Jessie.
Oh, hey, hi. Thank you kindly tonight for coming and sparing some of your time to listen to me chat. So here, I'm just going to kind of go as the questions. So, what was the insanity of my life? I grew up in dysfunction. My parents were separated. My dad raised me. My grandparents took a huge part of that. My mom was running in her addiction. Saw her in the summers-ish for Christmas, and that was like crazy. I go from somewhat function to complete dysfunction, no rules, nothing, no care, no empathy, no nothing. So there was that. My dad raised me and my grandparents raised me till I was about 13. When I was with my dad, he still is the best dad in the world, okay? I had so much fun. It was him and me until we were about 13. I had no chores. We ate out all the time. I was raised by a single man. Spam sandwiches, restaurants. We would do our laundry at the wash and dry in Homer, and we had all the friends, and it was just really fun. And so that's kind of what my childhood was. He got married when I was 13. And again, my grandparents were a huge influence in my upbringing when I was younger. They were really strong Christian people, so I did have that to inspire me and talk into my life. And then I had, again, my mom who was like, woo, running in her addiction, doing what she was doing. And so, fast forward. So, my dad gets married when I was 13. I'm just going to say it, I was hell on wheels. I was insane. By the time I hit 13, 14, I was not very fun. They moved me from Homer to Saldana in a summer, and they didn't tell me, and then my dad got married. So I went from manageable to 180, this is who I am. I don't like anyone, you're not going to get married. And so something that I was reflecting on when I was writing this is I had mom issues early on and I didn't know it, right? I have rejection issues, I have people-pleasing issues, I have codependency issues. I have victory in those today, but I had, right? I had a parent reject me for her addiction. So therefore, I manifested, behaviors throughout my childhood, always trying to be the peacekeeper, and into teenage years, not trying to feel my feelings because of rejection. That is a huge part of my story, is feeling rejected by a mother figure. And then I also realized I have mom issues what I didn't know then, but what I know now is that I had mom issues really early on. Okay, I did not trust women, and let alone move me from Homer to Soldotna and don't tell me, put me in another school with a new woman in the house trying to tell me what to do. I didn't like it. And I wasn't going to do it. I was very rebellious. I was mad. I was very mad. I was not able to get close. I was afraid. I was afraid to get close. The stuff that I had seen in summer visits with my mother was hellacious. We all know, I don't want to glorify drug addiction, but we all know what that looks like. Some of us do, some of us don't. But it was not fun. And so they got married, blah, blah, blah. I started partying. I go from manageable to all the way over here, partied hard, didn't care. I just felt second. I felt rejected yet again, right? And so a pattern of behavior that I have identified is when I feel rejected, I act out or I get mean. So the person who I was mean to the most was my stepmother. And so that was the household from 13 to 18. And my poor dad was in the middle. Okay, he'd be at work and we'd both be at it, and I was just not nice. So there was that. Teenage years, I look back at that and I realize how alone I felt, not having my mom. There were times where, days that I would call her 50,000 times just to see if she was alive and she wouldn't answer. And then I carried that in my day. This hair's gonna drive me nuts. I carried that in my day, and that manifested into codependency and people pleasing and lying to get friends and partying to not feel it. Just the stuff that I did encounter on visits with her were a lot, Her heroin addiction took her to dark places, and I went with her when I visited her, and there's that. So, let's see here. My checking out, being rebellious, drinking, drugs, stealing, risky behavior, being promiscuous, became a way of life very quickly. When my dad got married, and so that was just kind of how I lived. I picked up codependency, people pleasing. There were some times where people would be like, "Where's your mom?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, she's a nurse, she's working." I would pretend like I had a mom. A very big hole in my life. I had a very big void, and I was not aware that that's what I was feeling at the time. So fast forward to 2009. 2009, I graduate and I head straight to Cali. Okay, a year before 2009, 2008, my mom gets clean. Okay, so I start a relationship with her. I only say that because that's why I head down to Cali. She had gotten clean. I wanted to try it out. And so thank you so much. Whew, this is getting crazy. There's hairs in my nose. I'm like, oh geez, this is gonna be a long one. So I graduate from 2009. I go see my mom in California, and I take a risk. I take a risk with a parental figure who I needed and wanted, and didn't know how to go about that. I had run amok at my dad's house, and I was ready to literally, I graduated May 2009. By June, I was out. By that time, my personal drug and drinking addiction had taken off. I loved prescription pills and I loved drinking. It was super fun at the time. That's what I did. I thought that was a way of life. I partied hard. I hate to glorify all that because some of us already, again, know what that is like, and I did the things. I went to the places, I hung out with the people, and I did the things to make it okay, which is lying and being deceitful and not being yourself in order to live that lifestyle. You put up really big walls to fit in that life. At least that's what I've experienced. When you're running and gunning, you are not you. I was not me. By any stretch of the imagination, I am not a hard human being, and I was in situations where I'm grateful for God that got me out of those. Super grateful to be alive as well. So I graduate, I go down to California, and I hit this wall of, I try to have a relationship with my mother, who has 2 boys from the previous marriage, so she's raising little kids, and I want my mom to myself. I want my mom, I want to be loved, I want to be nurtured by her, because no other woman can do it. I needed her. And I just remember writing this, I remember feeling that immensely. I was going to graduate, and I had all this planned out. She's going to spend time with me, she's going to spend money on me, she's going to give me money, she's going to let me do whatever I wanted in her house, because that's what she did in my life. She got to do whatever she wanted in my life, so I'm going to go down there, and there's going to be no problem. I guess that doesn't work, when you get in early recovery, you start making boundaries and stuff, so she wasn't having it. I was mad. So again, in my backpack, I'm carrying around all these things, right? From childhood to teenage, I have rejection issues, codependency issues, people pleasing. I'm not wanting to feel my feelings. It's getting weird. It's getting really weird, and I'm starting to accumulate just trouble. I get in trouble. I got in trouble. Again, wrong people, wrong places, wrong time, doing not good things that I really didn't even fit in at that time. I'm really weird, and I remember being in some situations where I'm I just don't even say the right things, So super grateful again to God for I didn't even fit in that life, So tense emotions, trying to fast heal my relationship with my mom, which was really, what's the word? Tumultuous. Is that a word? Oh, yeah, that's a big one. I don't speak like that, but I can say that word. It was hard. It was really hard. And so fast forward to October 2009, I met this really cool guy. So my mom made me get a job. I couldn't party at her house. So I just wanted her to fix all my emotions that I had, because at the time I didn't know how to compartmentalize how I was feeling, because I was drinking and drugging and running and gunning. And so I wanted to go to her, and I needed her to fix all of my issues. That didn't work at all. And I also had to pay bills, and I had to get a job, and I had to stop partying and all the things. So I graduate in May 2009, October 2009 I go to a CNA school because I'm supposed to get a job. So I'm all right, let's do it. So I go to the CNA little class, a little 8-week course, and I meet this really cool guy who had this orange bike with little beeps on it, and he made really corny jokes, and he sat in the front and was a teacher's pet, and he's now my husband. Oh, he was so cute. Oh, but he got all straight A's, and anyways, so I did this, and that is when I met my husband. Firmly believe that was a divine appointment. I did get married really young. I was 19 when I married him. We finished the CNA school together. We started to be CNAs together. I was a CNA for about 8-9 years at a skilled nursing facility. It was so cool because, you take care, those of you that have been CNAs, you take care of your elderly folks, and they kind of know your life, and he had given me a promise ring, and this lady knew it, and it was just really cool. Really cool little things. And I did write right here, I put, he is good to those who love him, and I'm just reminded, talking about all this, that there are things, people, places, and stuff that happens for a reason, right? So 2010, 2014, so we have 5 years together. We get married at a courthouse. None of my family agrees, and I do it anyway, so I'm I'm doing it, I don't care. Like, they think that we should have more time together, we should, wait. It was like, I think we were together 10 months before we got married, and everyone was like, that's too fast. Even now, I struggle with impulsive behavior, but back then, I was very impulsive. I did what I wanted, how I wanted, and I really didn't think about it. But I did feel, and I still feel at that time, there were some things there, we saved each other for marriage, and that was God. That was like the most respect I've gotten from a man in like my whole life. So we did that right, and I firmly believe that is the covering over my marriage that I have today. So 2010, 2014, almost 5 years together of no kids. We tried to go to LDN school, try to do all that. That was a crap show. So in that 5 years, we're both running and gunning, trying to do life together, and I'm acting out on all of my character defects, right? So my codependency, my people pleasing, and it was overly apparent that our addictions were just fire and ice, So in that 5 years, I say that 2010, 2014, 4 or 5 years, we had a lot of time to write our story, right? So we get together, we get married, and it's like, 2 people in a house with a whole bunch of stuff, and no idea, no skill set, no one taught us how to cohabitate in a nice, healthy way, so it was just like all the things together, going back and forth, until it got really real. In that 5 years, my own addiction had gotten to a place where I drank so much, I was just on the bottle, my liver was shutting down, I smelled like ammonia. It was just time to stop. I was day drinking, we're talking like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, we're cracking open some beers or some wine and we're getting to it, all the while trying to like pay bills and do adult things. It just didn't work out. So I came to my stopping point when I found out I was pregnant with my first son, Jason Jr. He's 9. Really handsome football player. Anyways, so number 89. So again, without glorifying addiction, I run and gun until I have that point that we all get to where we're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's do something different. This is not the life for me. I also had an agenda when I wanted to stop. I wanted to be better than my mother, right? So sometimes we have that thing where we want to be better than our mom or dad or whoever. I was going to be better than my mom because she was on heroin. I wasn't going to drink. I wasn't going to drug. I was going to be like this super cool mom. That is exhausting. Just let me tell you, it is exhausting trying to outplay your trauma. Like, it's just exhausting. And so I find out I'm pregnant with my son, and I stop I stopped drinking, I stopped taking pills, I try to declutter my life. So I stop, and what I do is I completely turn around and I focus on my husband's behavior. I start to become very codependent on what he's doing, how he's doing it, who he's hanging out with, and micromanage my life to the 10th degree. Also, to the point where, like, it got weird. Like, I had manifested all of these codependent behaviors because I wasn't using anymore. I had a son, I had to be better than my mom, and no, he wasn't going to do that, so I'm going to micromanage every inch of his life as well as mine, right? And so I did come to a breaking point with that. That can kind of make you crazy, at least for me. Like, there was a point where, those fights that we have all probably gotten into where you're fighting because you want control, and I was throwing stuff at him across the street, and I got the cops called on me, and they were going to do me because I had a child and I was going crazy because I could not control my husband's addiction, and then I had no control over my mom's. So 2-for-1 combo. I get rejected by my mom, and then I get rejected by my husband. So I have no worth. I don't belong, I'm not important. That's how I was feeling. Why am I here? Why am I living? I had gotten to a super low point there. So we continue on, and I'm trying to, micromanage my husband's behavior and just like crazy household. I look back on that and I still feel the weight. It's still right here. You know what I mean? Like that stuff that you go through, it's still like right here. So my son was about, oh gosh, he was so little, like 5 or 6 months. And I go to my first CR meeting, which was super cool. And I try to hang out with all these women that talk about just their stuff. And I was like, no, I'm here because my husband is sick. I'm here because he did this to me. I'm coming here because he broke my heart. And I'm coming here because I have the right to act the way that I do. I have the right to be an absolute, just mean person and angry and controlling because he chose to choose drugs. And what I later found out is that's not how this program works at all. And it's cool because there's some growth that happens over time with consistency in this program where, even myself, I would focus on him. And even today, it's like, my behavior, like what am I doing in this situation? And so I tried to reach out for help. Like I was scared. There were some big players in the house at that point. We had OCS a few times, tried to take my kiddo, domestic violence, Jason getting what are they called? Fired from jobs for, OCS on the scene. And so I knew something needed to change, and I didn't know how to do it. I was really scared. So let's say we're 3 years into this chaos, like we get married and that's 3 years into just daily grind of fighting, and let's say Jason, or I'm so crazy I'm going to bed in, and it's just like the insanity cycle. It's all the time. And so September of 2014, Jason overdoses pretty bad. And so that was like a turning point for me. That was a big turning point for me. It had been a few times since then, a few overdoses, but this one was pretty bad. He was pronounced dead for like 2 minutes, and then he was like, oh, he's alive. And so before that, I knew God wanted me to do something different. Like I know there's been, in all of our lives, there's been a situation where you have to move. You have to make a different choice. And I remember like in my home, I was like, God was like lifting me up out of the door and saying, you need to choose something different. This isn't working anymore. And I remember that day, a couple days before this, that I went to a women's shelter, domestic, DV shelter, and I asked for help. And I did that footwork, and I asked for some resources because I had a baby and I was going to be better than my mom, and my kid was not going to deal with this at all. That was my driving force, and I was grateful for that. I think that's what got me out of that. I look back now, that probably wasn't the healthiest, but that's what helped me got out of there. And I am grateful that even in the yuck, even in the absolute yuck of my life, where I had a huge part too. I had someone in my home getting high, but I also had a huge part in being codependent, people-pleasing, poor boundaries, and literally loving someone to death that I was killing myself inside. I was losing huge parts of myself by trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. And not bonding with my child in the process because I was so stressed out. Let me tell you, kids pick up on all that. And so I remember, the day before all of this, I had thrown a plate across the room because I was livid. And mind you, I have anger problems too, right? I struggle with anger. And I had thrown it across because it was just the last time I wanted, people running in my house. I had people in my house at all hours, and it was just a lot. And I'd thrown a plate, and I'd scared my kiddo in his little thingy plaything, and I will never forget that face. Like, he was terrified, and I had startled him, and the life that I was, like, I knew something had to change. And so God made that happen. And I didn't expect, and it's cool because God knows the desires of your heart. And when you want out, when you plead, like, during this time I was pleading for my life. Don't want to cry, but I felt like there was a big monster in my house that was bigger than I. And it was going to kill me, destroy me, take my husband, take my kid, take my life. And I'd come to the end of myself where I couldn't do it by myself, and I needed help. And I had to I'm a super prideful person, and I want to do it all by myself, and I don't need you, listen, you need me, get in line. It's just like prideful stuff like that, So going to the shelter and being with women, and they had their little groups and stuff, I was like just not out of a place to open up, because I was in the middle of dealing with trauma that they wanted to talk about all this fluffy stuff, and I was like, I'm not doing that, dude. And then they got your coffee for you, and they helped you, and they, I just didn't think at that time I deserved anything, because the mess my life was in. Cops, OCS, all the things, and the cool part about this is I had reached out to the shelter before this happened, and so I had made some moves to keep my child, and that was my main focus at that time, is I did not want to lose my child. So I did that. So Jason, so he goes to rehab for a year, and I'm doing this single mom thing, sort of thing. And it was cool because we would go see him every weekend, and Jason had a little Disneyland dad every weekend, got all the treats, and I tried to support his recovery. And in the meantime, I continued to get a job, and I did all that, and I only lasted like a couple months in that shelter. I wish I would have stayed longer, but I couldn't do it. I went to go live with my mom. So fast forward, he gets out of, I do the single mom thing, I raise a kid. And then I think that a geographical move, so he gets out a year later, so we're in California, we move up to Alaska. So in my mind, because I'm still not well, because I tried to still do CR, and I would just talk about him, like it was all about him, man, like he did all this and blah, 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 and I didn't talk about me at all. And so that whole year while he was trying to go get well, I was just woe is me victim stance, which is super easy to do for me at that time. So he gets out of rehab. I say, let's move, let's do a fresh start, like we'll move and none of these problems will ever happen again. That was my plan, like that was really gonna happen. And so we move up here, we get into the same cycle. I get into the same cycle yet again. People pleasing, codependency, poor boundaries, anger because I feel rejected, not working on my stuff, trying to go to meetings and not working on me, like focusing on A, B, and C, but not me, right? So so that's kind of how I got into recovery, is just trying to do it by myself. So what are some of the circumstances that others can relate to? So in my story, abandonment, addiction, rejection, codependency, grief, loss of control, loss of identity, repeated trauma. I will say just not taking care of myself and all that I feel like it created more trauma than it needed to be, if that makes sense. It added more. And why I say that is because we're all in different seasons, different stages of our life, and it's really important to take care of your stuff. I look back and just talking about this, I wish I would have put down my walls early on to get a little freedom. Put down my walls early on to not carry such a heavy load. Because sometimes it can feel heavy. Sometimes it can feel like it's 1,000,000 pounds, and it's too much. And so, what was my relationship with God like? Better now, still growing. I was angry and bitter. I was really mad at God. I was mad at God for giving him the childhood that I have. I was mad at God for giving me the cards that I had to deal with of, being rejected by my mom and growing up with all that and all the feelings with that. I was mad that I had to be the one to take care of my child alone and still work. And just feeling the weight of being rejected. I obviously didn't know how to deal with that. And so it manifested in anger and control in a lot of ways. I didn't trust people a lot, so how was I going to trust God? If people are going to hurt me, people are going to let me down, so God, what do you have for me? Where's my worth in these relationships that, with my mother, my husband, my family, that let me down? How are you going to love me if these people don't even love me? So my self-worth was down the drain. I put a lot of validation in people, places, and things, and making people happy and making things look good. I know now that was a coping mechanism to make it manageable, I guess, to trudge through. I remember as a young child, I'd go to visit my mom, and it was hellacious, but my dad would be on the line, and, how you doing? Oh, it's great. There's no food in the fridge, Oh, how you doing? Fantastic, we're going swimming. It just automatically at a young age, how can I insert an answer, autofill, they're happy. Boom, boom, happy. So that's just how that was. And then I also, my relationship with God, I did that with God too. All right, I'll go to a meeting because we're supposed to do recovery. Okay, I'm going. And then nothing changed. And that's why nothing changed. My walls were up. So, what was my attitude to others like? Oh, okay, so I already kind of went over that. I rocked the victim stance. It was always somebody else's fault. Always somebody else's fault. Always somebody else's fault. I remember one time I was at a CR meeting. It was the after group thing, and I was going on and on about whoever, and this lady was so what's your part? And I probably could have slapped her, and not for real, but for real. I was because I was on a roll, and it was victim mentality. It was victim mentality. So I just remember that, and then I chose what I talked about. So what was my lowest point? I have a few. I did talk about, almost losing my kiddo. That alone for me was one of the, it was really hard for 2 or 3 days of trying to make sure that they knew I was a safe parent. Some of us may know that where it just is hard when someone is already assuming your actions and they're not even asking you questions and they're just putting you in this category because of somebody else's behavior. I felt judged. I didn't like them at my back. I didn't like them in my corner. I also wasn't at a place to receive what they were saying either. I was on the defense. That's also a character defect that I have. When I feel rejected, I'm defensive, right? So that's along in my story as well. So there's that. And then when in 2017, fast forward or behind a little bit, that's when we had moved up back to Alaska. And the same merry-go-round was going on me, and same insanity stuff. Okay, now we have 2 kids now, 2 kids in the mix, okay? So still micromanaging, still being angry, still having poor boundaries, still not opening up to people, still wondering why my life is so crappy, but I'm not being honest. But like, I'm not the one using, so can't you just make it better? Like, it just doesn't work that way, at least for me in my life. So summer of 2017, some crazy stuff happens with a situation. I had poor boundaries, we'll just keep it at that, right? Poor boundaries on my part. And there was some stealing going on my husband's behalf with a family member. All hell breaks loose. And I'm in the middle of my yard because I've reached the end of myself yet again. And apparently when I reach the end of myself, I start throwing stuff. So that's my MO, right? So I'm in the middle of my yard throwing salmon jars at a tree, canned salmon jars, because this situation had happened 3 times. And I was embarrassed. I felt isolated. How can my husband, still for my dad, And so my part in that was poor boundaries on my part, poor communication, control, manipulation even on my part. And so why I just speak that so you guys kind of know what's going on. So I had reached the end of myself yet again. I'm throwing salmon jars, I'm screaming on my knees, Jesus help me. Like, I go from California, same deal, same behavior, same codependency, same people pleasing, same rejection issues, same, oh my gosh, I can't control this yet again. And I start throwing salmon jars. And the neighbor comes over and she's like, you gotta calm down, what's up? And I was like, blow the things. And she's like, whoa. And I mean, the salmon, those salmon jars where you can salmon, I had the whole slate and I was chucking them, okay, just going to town. I had had enough and I had come to the end of myself yet again. I could not handle my life with the state that it was in. It was far too painful. And again, the same monster was in my house, far bigger than my life, far bigger than my imagination, that had haunted me since I was a child, like that gray cloud in the house, addiction, depression, anxiety, like that thing that follows you, I had felt was never gonna go away in my life. Like, this is my life now, this is what we do. So I'd had it. So my neighbor was like, do you need to go to the hospital? I'm like, I'm fine, And I lost it, okay? So my part, poor boundaries, all the things that I said. So I again try to come to CR, try to do the thing, and I do pretty well. I reach out for help. I didn't at that time want to be at the place where I was at. So I was in enough pain to change. I know some of us have experienced that where there's too much pain and the pain of remaining the same, when it's too much, you want to change, right? And I had come to that place in my life where I was like, whoa, like history's repeating itself. Like, this is insane, man. And it's crazy because I look back and I'm like, you do all sorts of things for the ones you love, man. Like I still love them, right? But in my codependency and people pleasing, poor boundaries, like I was down. I was too loyal, right? I was way too loyal, even in my marriage. And that brought me to so many breaking points. It is true that you can love someone to death. And that was me, not necessarily him. I was losing myself in the process of trying to control something that I could not control, And then finding out when after this 2017, I come to meetings again and I realized this laundry list of stuff I got popping off. So I again go to meetings, try to get some help, okay? So my experience and changes in working through CR. So how I got into recovery, God broke what needed to break off to get me to move, right? I firmly believe that even in the tough situations, or what I thought was tough, I feel that it needed to happen to mold what I have now, right? And will continue to have in alignment with Him. How has my growing relationship, oh my gosh, I think I'm a little ahead. Anyways, my experience, so the changes that have happened in working recovery is I've tried CR, probably been doing CR, so my oldest is 9, been doing a few rounds of CR, sure, we'll try it, let's get better, and then, oh, maybe I'll put my walls down a little bit, maybe I'll let somebody in. You know, even at a young age, everyone was this far away, because I just, like, what do you have for me? Why do you want to talk to me? You don't need me, I'm not worth it. And so, kind of lost my train of thought, hold on, experiences in recovery. Recovery is worth it. Recovery is huge. And I will say, from not being genuine to being genuine in recovery, there's a big difference. Hold on. Okay, hold on, guys. So, experiences in recovery, okay? So here we go. How did the program help me? Celebrate Recovery gave me freedom from myself. Gave me a lot of freedom from myself. I made my own bed, honestly, and that takes a lot to say, because for a long time, as I've mentioned, it was always somebody else's fault. The program helped me identify what I had been holding on to since a very small child. Rejection, codependency, people pleasing, even rage, anger, all the things. Working a program helped me open up to women, which is a big deal in my life. From a very young age, I identified that I had mom issues for some reasons, right? And I had a hard time, except this last time coming into recovery, because trying to do it on my own for 2 years didn't work. Working the program has helped me realize I need a program, right? Trying to do it on my own self-will is not gonna work. It's not gonna work. I'm really stubborn when it comes to that. I really try to flip, turn, tear off, go through any sort of formula to make it work in my way. Like, I really wanted it my way. I wanted to feel how I feel and do no work, right? So come to a recovery thing, blame it on somebody else, and then I'm good. That's really how I thought. I was gonna go talk about everybody else and not focus on me. So recovery, specifically Celebrate Recovery, has helped me identify what's going on with me and how I can address how to respond, because I'm a reactionary person, so I react pretty quickly, and not in the best ways. So working on and working through things that hurt, because for a long time I didn't want to hurt. It was like being rejected of any kind, being abandoned. I'm sure we've all felt that to some degree. It hurts. It really hurts, and it's deafening, there's just some pieces within my interpersonal relationships that I couldn't look at because I was mad. I was pissed, I found the program allowed me to pack up my bag, unpack my bag and focus on my behaviors and issues, right? And so I realized coming into this program, my backpack was huge, because not only did I not want to look at my behaviors, but I was taking inventory of all of yours and then some, and carrying everyone else's load, Part of my thing too was growing up and not wanting to feel was I would take everyone else's situations on like my own because it made me feel better. I needed to feel important. I needed to have purpose and blah, 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 all the while not looking at myself. And that I identify today as self-damage, right? Sometimes when you say yes to everything, what are you tearing away from yourself? This is good. Boundaries. So what the program has given me is how to have boundaries and how to navigate that in a healthy way. So I thought boundaries when I first got into recovery was being a mean person, okay? Really mean person. I'm gonna set this boundary down and cut the person down. Or cut myself down while making a boundary, right? Like I thought that's how that went. Like, all right, I'm in my house, I'm making this boundary, I'm gonna be really mean about it, and I'm gonna be stern. And that's not how that goes either. So what this program has given me is people to talk to about my situation and people to lean on and get some perspective and some healthy words to say, because the words for recovery were not the best. I struggle also from a hypocritical spirit, like, especially when I feel rejected and abandoned, I get mean, don't like it. I have learned how to navigate that, right? So that's what CR has given me. I've learned what is mine, like what is mine to take care of, and what is yours, right? What is mine, what is yours, where I fit and where I don't. Growing up before, I thought I didn't have an identity. I didn't know myself. I didn't want to know myself because there was a lot of stuff I didn't want to look at. And so I would try to fit everywhere. I was like, and all the while I had no identity. What the program has given me is my deepest desire, which is my relationship with God. I grew up, going to church. My grandmother was a beautiful woman of God who loved the Lord, strong and deep and big. And so I should probably back up. I feel like we're in a big small group meeting, so I'm getting more comfortable. Okay, so biggest mother figure of my life was my grandma. Okay, so again, what the program has given me is my love for Jesus. My love for Jesus and all that he has done for me, and to praise him even in the hurt. It's okay to struggle, but struggle well, right? Struggle with solutions, maybe struggle with intention to put your walls down and talk about it. You never know what your situation can do to help somebody else that going down the road. No one ever taught me how to be super duper honest, in that, we either don't look at it or we swipe it under the rug or we just completely ignore it, right? And so here I learned everything that my family did not teach me, and in a healthy way. Like, we have a mother figure who doesn't acknowledge it at all, and then we have a father figure who gets mad and angry and does all the other stuff. So here I learned how to have a nice even keel. Boundaries, what is appropriate, what is not. The dynamic of my home when I'm doing CR and recovery and being really vulnerable and honest is really hard still. I wish I can say it's all rainbows and butterflies, but it's not. However, I have had periods where I have not had this program in my life. And what it brings me to every single time is this dark grayness in my heart, in my soul, in my mind, in my home, in my relationships, in my thoughts, and that could be either depression, anxiety, but that's how I vision it. It's this gray thing in my life that's huge. And it becomes bigger than me, and I can't handle it, and not surrendering and not giving it to God and trying to do it on my own will gets me to that place every single time. Whether it be, codependency, people pleasing, trying to control. I need Jesus, I need CR. I need all of you. And the most important part is, that was it. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so then we have, did one particular step touch my heart in a special way? So step 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove all of our character defects. Humbly ask yourself, humble yourself before the Lord, it will lift you up. From early on, I put way too much on my own identity and others, creating expectations, approval where it wasn't needed, misplaced anger towards others due to lack of boundaries, self-control, loss of control, etc. As much as when I came into CR, again, it was all everyone else's fault. We were entirely ready to have God remove our character defects. When I was chucking plates and throwing salmon jars because I couldn't control my environment, I reached this point where I'm like, I need help right now, right now. And I had tried everything else but him. I literally tried everything else but him. And I look back now, I wish I wasn't so stubborn. Why couldn't I just sweetly surrender and you have it all, God, and blah, blah, blah. I was fighting. I was fighting the wrong fight, is what I identified this step with, is I had come to a few points in my life where, I had major character defects popping off and I needed help. I could no longer handle it. I needed help. I cried for help. Me screaming at the top of my lungs in the middle of Willowa. I used to live in Willowa. I had people like, whoa, you okay? You know what I mean? So I made a pretty big scene. So we were entirely ready to have God remove our character defects. In that, we're just talking about this in step study 2, being willing and ready. In these few times that I had just entirely went down to my knees, I had nothing and no one, right? So I had, see, I'm eating that time up. Sorry, man. Okay, so there's that. All right, the new me. What areas of my life are gone? Old life are gone. So what areas of my old life are gone? I now believe that I need this program and I will continue to work this program. The old me, I no longer want to do this alone. I no longer want to fight this alone. A lie that I used to believe is God doesn't want me. I believe now that He has given me a spirit of encouragement and a gift of hospitality, and I use it often. My story, there was a lot of times where I just didn't feel wanted, loved, cherished, delighted in. And that old me is gone. I actually have a purpose, I have a place, and it's with God. And He tells me what to do and where to go as much as I allow Him. I do bring that baton back. I do struggle with that control daily. I surrender it a lot. And another lie that, the old me is gone. God left me like my mom and husband. God didn't leave me at all. Okay, so God had nothing to do with that. He was with me the whole time. And so what I know now is I realize that my relationship with the people that were supposed to love me directly affected my relationship with God. So that's actually a lie. My relationship with God is separate from my relationship from my mom and my husband. And God is for me. I also believe that God will choose me. God will choose you even if you don't want Him. That's the biggest thing that when I look back and even today, God chose me, will choose me even if I don't want Him. Okay, He's got my back, He's got your back no matter what. He knows your deepest desires, and He will help you. One of the big verses that I super duper love is Isaiah 43:2. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. there for a minute, like I thought I was going to be consumed again by this gray thing that's always in my life. And not only did he give me a way out, but he carried me and made me find him again. And that's all that I wanted. For a long time, I didn't even think God existed because of the stuff and the places and the people that I chose to have in my life, that I chose to mingle with, that I chose to participate in. God wants you even if you don't want him, you know. I didn't feel chosen a lot until working a really heavy program and examining myself. And I'm super grateful for this program and what it has done in my life in just this short 6 months short 8 months that I've restarted again. Because for 2 years I thought I didn't need you guys. And for 2 years, again, I thought it was just everyone else's fault. So I don't know if that made a whole lot of sense. I was really rocking and rolling there. But other than that, I'm done. Thank you for listening. And I think the biggest thing that I want to leave you guys with is, if you want change, get real. Like, I'm in a step study right now that I'm gut-wrenching honest. I am not holding one detail back at all. And God uses that. God also uses you if you don't want to share too. I pray that God puts people and places in your life to make that happen as well. Is that mine? Oh yeah. Am I supposed to read that? Okay. Anyways, I'm done. Thanks for listening.